Ever feel like, you're kind of adrift? Like you're just bombarded with all this noise about what should make you happy, but something's still missing.
Yeah, it's like a constant state of, is this it?
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today. This conversation between Tom Bilyeu and Robert Greene really gets into the nitty-gritty of finding your purpose, escaping that feeling of just going through the motions in a world that doesn't always make it easy.
And right off the bat, they pinpoint this huge thing, this trap of mindless consumption.
Oh, I see where they're going with this.
It's like we're drowning ourselves in
Yeah.
distractions, right?
Yeah.
Binge watching, endless scrolling on social media,
Yeah.
even just consuming way more than we need. Food, stuff, you name it.
It's filling the void with ton more void, really. You ever notice that?
Exactly. It's fleeting satisfaction. And Greene and Bilyeu, they argue it's actually this constant need for that external validation, that quick hit of dopamine that keeps us from finding any real lasting fulfillment.
It's like chasing that sugar high, but with, well, everything.
Right. And they believe that true fulfillment, the kind that actually sticks with you, comes from something much deeper.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Go on.
It's about aligning your actions with your core values.
Uh-huh.
They talk about finding your own North Star, those guiding principles that give you a sense of direction, a sense of purpose.
Okay, finding your North Star sounds kind of like something you'd see on a motivational poster, but I get it. But how do you actually do that? It's not like you just wake up one morning and bam, there it is.
Right. And to be fair to Greene and Bilyeu, they're very clear about this not being some quick fix, self-help solution. They stress that this is about serious introspection, getting real with yourself, even if it's uncomfortable.
Like actually taking a good, hard look in the mirror and being honest about, I don't know, maybe that career everyone expects you to pursue, maybe it's just not doing it for you anymore.
Exactly. You have to be willing to question everything. It reminds me of Robert Greene's own story, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he talks about how he bounced around from job to job, construction, working in a hotel, even tried his hand as a detective, believe it or not.
Wow, talk about a diverse resume.
Right, and it was only after all that, all those seemingly random experiences, that he finally landed on his true calling as a writer.
It's almost like those detours, those wrong turns, they're all part of the process.
Absolutely. And that's a key point they emphasize. It's about embracing those so-called mistakes, not getting trapped in regret, but actually seeing those experiences as, well, opportunities to learn and grow.
Easier said than done, right?
For sure. But Greene, he really hammers home this idea that those early failures, even though they might not feel like it at the time,
Yeah.
they're actually incredible opportunities for growth.
It's like that whole you either win or you learn thing, but you have to actually believe it, internalize it.
Exactly. And to that point, they bring in this fascinating example. Andrew Huberman, you know him.
The neuroscientist, yeah, I've
Yeah.
heard some of his stuff.
So Huberman, he actually found his true passion, are you ready for this, in podcasting,
Really?
after feeling totally unfulfilled in academia.
Wow, talk about a plot twist.
Yeah.
That's kind of inspiring, though. It shows how what we might see as a failure, or even just a detour, can lead to something way more aligned with who we are.
Right. It's like life's telling you to take a different exit. Pay attention. And speaking of unexpected paths, isn't that similar to Tom Bilyeu's story, too?
Oh, totally. Finding his passion in media after what most people would consider a successful, even enviable career in the food industry.
Yeah, and both of those stories, they really highlight this need for, one, constant self-reflection. Are you really on the right path for you? And two, the courage to course correct when you need to. Even if it means going against the grain, doing something totally unexpected. And a huge part of that, they argue, is learning how to drown out all the external noise, all the expectations, the pressure to conform, and instead cultivate this ability to really tune into yourself. Greene calls them impulse voices.
Impulse voices. Okay, now I'm really curious.
He's talking about those inner whispers, those gut feelings that tell us what really lights us up, what truly fascinates us,
Got it.
even if it doesn't fit neatly into the boxes everyone else is trying to put us in. It's about learning to trust those nudges, even if they lead you off the beaten path. And those impulse voices, they're kind of like the antidote to this other thing. Greene and Bilyeu talk about this sense of nihilism that seems to be everywhere these days, especially with, well, younger generations.
Yeah, that whole nothing really matters vibe. It's kind of hard to get motivated when you feel like that, right?
Exactly. And they connect that feeling of, I don't know, almost like disillusionment to this lack of purpose, like you're unmoored,
Yeah.
just overwhelmed by all the choices. Greene talks about how technology, especially social media, it just bombards us with these like curated versions of reality, and it just fuels this sense of like envy, like everyone else has it figured out, and we're the only ones who are failing.
It's like that comparison trap on overdrive, you know what I mean? Constantly seeing everyone's highlight reels.
Exactly. Yeah, it's tough to remember that it's not the whole picture.
Yeah, exactly. So how do we break out of that then? How do we shift gears from like doom scrolling to actually creating a life that feels meaningful?
Well, this is where they introduce this really fascinating concept, the sublime.
Okay, the sublime. I'm listening.
So imagine experiencing the world with this sense of awe, like really appreciating the beauty and the strangeness of just, well, being alive, even in the middle of all the messiness. Greene believes that cultivating this kind of perspective can be really powerful, like an antidote to all that negativity and apathy.
It's like instead of focusing on all the things that are wrong, you're choosing to see the wonder in the everyday, right?
Exactly. And it's not about pretending that everything's perfect or ignoring the hard stuff. It's about consciously choosing to notice the extraordinary in the ordinary. Finding those moments, those experiences that remind us that life is inherently valuable.
So it's almost like a shift in mindset, right? Instead of feeding that negativity, maybe even getting caught up in tearing other people down, we can choose to focus our energy on building something meaningful.
Exactly. And they emphasize this a lot. Channeling your energy into constructive action, into creating, contributing, that's what ultimately leads to a real sense of purpose, that lasting fulfillment.
Which, of course, is way easier said than done, so where do we even begin? They talk about the importance of self-awareness, but how do you actually do that in a way that feels actionable?
Well, they both talk about the power of introspection. Greene, for example, he's a big proponent of just taking some time each day, even if it's just a few minutes, to step away from all the distractions.
Huh.
Quiet the noise and just be with yourself. Sit with your thoughts, your emotions. Try to figure out what's really driving your behavior, what truly matters to you.
Like hitting the pause button on autopilot and actually tuning in to what's going on inside.
Exactly. Whether it's journaling, meditation, going for a walk in nature, find what works for you, anything that helps you disconnect from the external and reconnect with that internal compass.
And Greene even takes it a step further, right? He talks about how we have this tendency, almost like a default setting, to tear other people down. And that it often comes from this place of envy or resentment.
Yeah, and he doesn't let us off the hook with that one. He's like, that stuff is toxic. It holds us back from reaching our own potential.
It's like that crab in a bucket mentality.
Yep. Instead of celebrating each other's wins, we get stuck in this cycle of negativity and comparison. And they're both very clear. To break free from that, it takes a conscious effort. You have to cultivate self-awareness. You have to challenge those limiting beliefs that tell you you're not good enough, that
Yeah.
someone else's success is somehow taking away from yours.
Which, let's be honest, is way easier said than done in a culture that's constantly telling us to chase instant gratification and validation.
Oh, for sure. We're surrounded by this quick fix mentality.
Yeah, shortcuts to everything.
And Greene acknowledges that, but he also stresses this. True mastery in any field, that requires a willingness to embrace the discomfort. You have to push past those initial feelings of frustration, of resistance. And he uses the example of Kobe Bryant. This guy's all about competition, but he channeled that drive into relentlessly honing his skills on the court. And look what he achieved. That level of mastery, that's not an accident. That's about pushing past your comfort zone.
That's such a powerful example. It's like even those parts of ourselves we might see as weaknesses, those darker impulses, they can actually become incredible sources of strength and growth if we learn how to harness them.
Exactly. It's not about pretending those parts don't exist. It's about developing the self-awareness and the discipline to channel that energy in a more constructive direction.
So it's about taking control, right? Like recognizing that we actually have more power than we think to choose how we react to things, to shape our own lives.
Exactly. And Greene, he really emphasizes this idea that self-discovery and growth, it's not a destination.
It's not like you just arrive one day and that's it.
Right? It's a journey. It's ongoing. It's this process of always questioning, exploring, refining your understanding of yourself and, honestly, the world around you.
It's like you're always learning and evolving.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so exciting.
Right. It's about staying curious. But it's not all about us, right? Like, they also talk about how this commitment to personal growth, it kind of ripples outwards. It changes how we interact with the world, how we contribute to something bigger than ourselves.
Absolutely. The more we understand ourselves, embrace those imperfections, the more we're able to give back in a way that feels truly meaningful.
So it becomes this kind of positive feedback loop. Personal growth fuels contribution, which creates a deeper sense of purpose, which then fuels even more growth.
It's like this upward spiral,
Yeah.
and it reminds me of how Greene talks about that innate human desire to create. We're hardwired for that, to build, to find mastery in things that light us up.
It's like we're driven to make things, to leave our mark on the world, and find joy in the process.
Yes. And that's the thing. It's not just about the end result, the achievement. It's about finding that satisfaction in the work
It's
itself.
about the journey, not just the destination. Cliché, but true.
It's true. And they both seem to agree that finding that sense of mastery and purpose in your work, it's not about chasing some external definition of success. It's about finding that deep satisfaction in the work itself.
Yeah, it's about honing your craft, always learning, growing, and using those unique skills and talents, to make a positive impact.
Exactly. It's like that's where the magic happens. When we can tap into that intrinsic motivation, challenges, setbacks, they just become part of the journey.
So, to kind of bring things full circle, it seems like overcoming that feeling of aimlessness, finding that sense of fulfillment, it starts with really getting to know ourselves, our values, our motivations, embracing the detours, the mistakes, even, and seeing them as opportunities for growth.
Yeah, it's about recognizing that we're not just along for the ride. We have the power to choose our direction, to design a life that feels meaningful.
Absolutely. And that's the power of a deep dive like this. It's about giving you the tools to navigate the world with more intention, more purpose, and hopefully a little more joy along the way.